All right. What up, what up, what up? It's your boy Baki back with another one, baby. Happy horror month for you guys out there in the world. Your boy's been playing a little bit of Metroid Dread. Kind of got in trouble. We don't want to talk about it. But you know what I'm saying. We've been out there playing a little bit of Metroid Dread on my stream. Make sure you guys follow the stream. Be able to see me live there. Probably unbanned tomorrow or some shit. When you watch this video, I should be unbanned. But yeah, let's get into it. All right. So today we're going to be reviewing, and hopefully each day I should be adding a new review, or every other day, depending on how long it takes for me to do these. Today we're going to be doing Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warrior. Here's something that I've said this countless times. You guys have even heard me say it about Chucky. Is Freddy Krueger and Chucky are my two favorite villains from the horror genre that have like ever been created. Mostly because they're just so hard to convince to someone else who's not a part of it. And I think that relay and that distance is what makes people go so crazy and deranged within each series respectively. Now it's crazy with Freddy because I've been watching them. I've seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all again. I just watched them all across the past week basically. One still has its great shock value, and you can appreciate the time that it was in, and you can tell that the ideas were a little bit underdeveloped. 2, they went a completely different route with Freddy's Revenge, and Freddy ends up killing more people in the real world than he really does in Dreamland. So with 3, I think what they wanted to do was they really wanted to hark back to a lot of the roots of what Freddy was and kind of give him a new perspective. So the whole premise of Dream Warriors is, if at the very beginning of the movie, after you get your first introduction to Kristen, who then gets admitted to the psychiatric ward, you get Lawrence Fishburne and Neil, who are walking together, Max and Neil, who are walking together, and they're listening in the background. There's a radio that's talking about all these suicides that have been happening throughout the past couple months. And Max even has an idea as to why the suicides are going down the way they are.
I got a new theory about all these suicides, right?
Don't hold back on us, Max. We need all the help we can get.
Yeah, it's fucked up chromosomes, man. Think about it. All their parents dropped acid during the 60s.
But what you really come to understand is it's actually Freddy who's realized that instead of having one kid over here and one kid over here and one kid over there and one kid over there, then when he goes to sleep I hop in his shit, and when she goes to sleep I hop in her shit, he goes to sleep I hop in their shit, I can just keep all these motherfuckers together and then go into each of their dreams individually, right? And then they're a collective fear now, because when they go to these meetings or these psychiatric ward, therapy sessions, their first thing that they have to deal with is talking about Freddy, and everyone has a story about Freddy. So the psychiatrist actually thinks that they're all sharing this together, which is kind of weird if you ask me. It's kind of one of my biggest gripes about the movie, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So that's Freddy's idea, is basically use all of these kids in one collective spot, so that way you just have an unsurmountable amount of fear that you're able to use to your advantage, and Freddy's very smart about that in this movie. You then find out through Kristen, once she gets admitted in, we get our first shot of Heather coming back. Nancy Thompson is back, and she's older. And it's a little crazy because the one thing I really love about this movie is they talk a lot about the outside things that are going on with the adults. So Neil doesn't even want Nancy to show up. He doesn't know who she is, but he thinks she's just some hotshot psychiatrist who just got a degree and is ready to just come in and try new things and go crazy with these kids.
She's been doing groundbreaking research on pattern nightmares.
Elizabeth, we don't need any outside help. I know these kids. I don't want some hot shot taking chances with them just so she can get published.
not realizing who she really is and her background. And Neil actually becomes one of my favorite characters in this movie. We'll talk about it a little bit later. So, you know, Nancy comes in and she shakes things up in the psychiatric ward pretty much instantly. Nobody was even able to get through to Kristen. You know, Nancy singing the 1-2, Freddie coming for you, finishing the song for Kristen. Boom, instant connection, right? So then later on that night, Kristen ends up dreaming, and you get one of the coolest like scenes to me. I was just wondering like how this would feel if like I was in that position. Even as an actor, it would still feel incredibly scary. Like there's a rug on the ground. They open up with the rug on the ground, and then the rug almost starts shaking. You know, there's this vibration cutting around, and as this is going around, it's going around her, then it goes onto the walls, cracks all of the walls along the side of her back and everything, and then it finally comes out to reveal itself and starts, you know, consuming her and everything. And I love how when it grabs her, you can just see the stunt double do the arm cross. Like this is what they taught us how you fall in karate. Like you fall like this, and then when you finally hit the ground, you slap down afterwards, but you're usually like this when you fall. It's actually how they have you jump out of the plane too. When I skydive, they had you cross your arms and then you fucking just go out instead of just like, you know, trying to push your arms out or whatever. So once that happens, she's able to pull Nancy into her dream. So then you get the real premise of what this movie's going to be. Kristen has the ability to pretty much pull everyone into her dreams. And with that ability, you know, they think that this might help them deal with the problems of their dreams, you know. Nancy, on the other hand, is taking Hypnosil, and the doctor gets a glimpse of this really early before any Freddy Krueger shit is even brought up.
Thanks.
Nancy is trying to slowly convert Neil, you know, just slowly, not too crazy, not too wild, just very, very slowly, you know. And you get this first death that happens, which is Philip. Philip is our first one that is killed, and he's killed. He likes to play with it looks like they're potatoes or something. I'm not really sure. Maybe it's clay. I'm not really sure exactly what it is that he's playing with. You guys can let me know. Maybe it's clay in the comics. Let me know what it is. But he's playing with these dolls, you know, these ventriloquist dolls. So basically what Freddy does is Freddy cuts up all of his tendons and then uses them to control him. Now here's something that I noticed was really interesting. The roommates have very different relationships, right? You got okay, let's just mention a few of the kids right now, right? You got Philip, that's the ventriloquist guy. You got Kincaid, he makes it to the next movie. You got Jennifer, you got Will, you got I'm just gonna call her Blades. You got Kristen, you got Nancy, and Joey. Okay, so Kincaid and Philip sleep together, right? When Philip starts sleepwalking, Kincaid just says like, hey, wake up. And he just sees him off on his own. He's like, have a nice stroll, asshole. Right? And the other room, right? Will and Joey are bunking together. And as soon as Max leaves the room, Will's like, all right, you got to take first watch.
Okay, you get first shift tonight. Oh, come on. I had it last night.
And Joey's like, no, you take first watch. And fucking Will's like, I took first watch yesterday. Meaning that they're constantly, one of them is staying up through the night watching the other one sleep over till the next day so that they don't get caught by Freddy. And as soon as something terrifying happens, they try to wake you up to get you out of the dream. You know what I mean? So it's interesting to see that dynamic where, you know, some of the patients are basically friends, and then some are just roommates at that, and they just keep it like that, super straight. There's no real relationship, and I think that's part of the reason that might have helped Joey in the long run. So yeah, Philip ends up getting fucking killed. He ends up getting brought to the very top of the towers, and you get one of the most, one is my favorite, probably my favorite shot in the entire movie. is Joey realizing this, because Joey's been keeping up. He's been staying up this whole time. So he just sees Philip up there, and when he sees him up there, he can't talk. Joey's a mute, or I don't know if he's a mute or if I'm not really sure what it is, but he's just not able to speak at the moment. And I do know somebody like that in real life, so it does happen. So Joey's not able to talk. So what he does is he grabs Will, who's been sleeping and is in a wheelchair. His legs don't work, but he grabs Will out of the bed and just throws him into a chair so he can see Philip. Then Joey runs to the nurse's station. The nurse's station, that bitch, she ain't paying attention, obviously. She's doing her own thing. And Joey just grabs the tray and runs down the hall, slapping each door. Bam, 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 bam. I love that shot, man. I could watch that shot 100 million times a day. I don't know what it is about it. It's just such a nice elongated shot with the darkness and the silhouette, and you just seeing Joey's fucking yum. He's just hitting that shit full force, man, and full on running. Like, I love that scene of what they're trying to do. So they all get in the room, try to save Philip. They don't end up saving Philip. That was probably my second favorite kill. My first favorite kill by far is Jennifer. Jennifer is, she wants to be like a TV star or something, but she ends up getting killed by the TV. But I just love how the TV looks when it comes out and grabs her. And then he's like, welcome to prime time, bam, and just slams her head in there. And you also have to look at it from Max's perspective too. Lawrence Fishburne, who I thought was going to die in this movie, but he never did. You know, he works there and he cares for these kids a lot, you know. He cares for them so much that he let Jennifer stay by herself in that room.
Yeah, well, if Sims catches you here after lights out, she's gonna cheat my ass.
I gotta stay on Max.
Jennifer.
Just tonight. Please.
Okay, but I never saw you.
Thanks, Max.
He comes back, there's nobody in there but Jennifer and the TV, so he thinks Jennifer killed herself. You know what I mean? Like, everything that's happening is very sensible as the movie keeps progressing. And then you get to this point where, Nancy's finally converting Neil, who's a psychiatrist who works there, to start to believe some of this stuff. So she ends up finally basically giving them the ability to start using Hypnosil, which is like a thing that suppresses their dreams, right? He tells the main psychiatrist, or the other doctor that's there, she's a female, who kind of reminds me of the chick from Dexter, like season 9, the last season of Dexter, who was like basically the creator of Dexter and shit. Listen, we're not gonna talk about that, but I'll show you an image. You know what I'm talking about. So, what ends up happening is Kristen ends up taking everybody into the dream the next time they go in. So they all go into the dream with Kristen on the next time, and Joey ends up getting caught. Now, when the psychiatric lady busts back through the door, she sees everybody on the floor and Joey's in a coma. And the last thing that the other doctor said, right? The last thing Neil said was, we're going to be using Hypnosil. So they think that Hypnosil is the reason that Joey's in this coma, not knowing that they never even used the Hypnosil. They never even got the chance to get that far before all this shit started to happen, right? So Joey ends up being in a coma, and his situation is fucked up, man. That shit would have caught me too, man. Because if I had a crush on like some lady in the goddamn ward, you know what I mean? Like, you're a growing kid, you're getting older. That's gonna happen. You're gonna get hit. That's gonna suck, man. You know what I mean? So Freddy right now is playing everybody like a fiddle. The one thing I don't think he counted on was the ghost of his mom. Amanda Kruger is basically what converts Neil into truly, never mind. I don't want to say only, because what helps convert him is him going into the dream with Kristen and them. He's in that room with them, and he's like, this isn't working. It's not working anymore. And eventually he pulls one of the balls, and the balls just scatter around. And then everybody shows their abilities inside this dream. So Neil is starting to believe, right? Then he hears a story about Amanda Kruger. And this is where I say that this movie, my favorite is Freddy 2. It's got its own reasons why it's my favorite, but I really like that fucking movie. But this movie is a close second because it starts to show you how much more depth they wanted to add to Freddy initially, and maybe not initially, but you know what I mean, with with what happened, you know. So Freddy got burned and all that stuff. But before all of that, before Freddy was even born, his mom got left into the psychiatric ward overnight, or not overnight, over the weekend, bro. So for like 48 to 72 hours, she was raped by over 100 different like fucking, you know, psycho fucking people and like convicts and everything. Like it was like the worst of the worst pretty much raped her for, you know, 48 to 72 hours, which is absolutely terrible. So she considers Freddy the devil's spawn already. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously she probably didn't think that when she had the baby, but now that she's a ghost and already gone and she's reflecting on that, Freddy is just a demon spawn. He was basically created by hell, the devil himself, you know? So there's a really cool aspect towards the third and final act. You know, everything's wrapping up. You got Nancy trying to convert Neil. He finally converts Neil. Neil and the rest of the kids are all trying to work together to not even try to fight Freddy yet. They're just trying to solve this whole dream shit. They really just want this shit to stop. You know what I mean? Some kind of way, shape, or form. So everything's coming together as a head. Neil finds out all this stuff, and then they go talk to Nancy's dad, who makes a reprising role. He's just some drunk who's drinking at some random bar and, you know, can barely stand the sight of his daughter, which was pretty crazy. So he ends up telling Nancy no. Nancy like ends up going off on her own to go do some things because they're going to end up putting Kristen under because she's been tripping or whatever. So she's going to get sedated, or somebody's going to get super sedated, and she needs to leave. So she leaves, and Neil ends up like kind of getting some balls and grabs the dad and says, "Hey, we're going to go on this fucking mission. Like, listen to me. We're going to go do this shit." And the movie turned into like kind of schlocky at this point, but I loved it. I loved the schlock. You have two separate things going on, right? You have Nancy and the kids in the dream world, and then you have her dad and Neil in the real world. Her dad and Neil in the real world are searching for Freddy's remains wherever they buried it. They didn't know where they buried the remains, or nobody knew except for like the cop and, you know, I mean, whoever else was a part of all that shit. So they go to the remains of where Freddy is, which is in this old junkyard car spot. It's one of the dopest scenes in the movie, in my opinion, because just the set piece of it is just incredible to look at. I mean, all the cars just tore up like they are. So they end up getting the bones out for Freddy, and they're you know, digging the grave. Meanwhile, in Dreamland, Freddy is fucking up everybody else. He's beating the shit out of Kincaid, and you know, everybody else is. I think at that point it's only Kincaid, Kristen, Nancy, because Will's gone. He dies pretty fucked up. Jennifer's been dead, and Blades ends up dying too, right? So everybody's pretty much gone. You got like 3, maybe 4 left in the dream world. And as Freddy's about to, like, you know, really fuck them up, he has to leave and put more of his attention to the real world. You know, Freddy's being split a little bit right here. And I love this is because he can't be in every place at once. So this is kind of like his demise right here. And then you get the funniest Mortal Kombat fight ever, where you get, or Killer Instinct, you get Spinal versus Danny Tanner, basically. And it's just so hilarious how this fucking skeleton hits him with the 360 turnaround shovel spin attack, bro. It makes me laugh every single time. And then on top of it, to top it off in this fight, after he's beaten his ass, what does he do? He grabs the shovel and just starts shoveling dirt on top of Neil. And then he doesn't even bury him alive. He just threw a little bit of dirt on him and just roared. Argh! It disappears. Because he's got to go back to the dream world to handle what he's handling in the dream world, you know? So you get some really breakthrough moments here towards this third act. That's basically what's going on in the real world. In the dream world, they're trying to handle shit the way they can. They find out Joey's not actually dead. He's still been hanging on that fucking bed with a fire over him for the last, who knows how long that boy's been there, you know? You actually find out what Joey's power is as well. He has the ability to talk, but it seems like the dreams and everything has just been suppressing that to such an extent he wasn't able to talk in the real world. In the next movie, he actually just has full conversations and shit. So he ends up like saving the day, if you will, slightly. Then we end up with a crazy, weird scene where, I guess I should say, in the real world, while Neil was fighting the skeleton threw her dad Nancy's father into some rusted metal, so he's pretty much dead. You then see him in the dream world. He's like, "Hey, sweetie, I've crossed over. You know what I mean? I love you." He goes and he hugs Nancy, and it's Freddy, man, and he just guts her, bro. He stabs her right in the fucking stomach, man. He guts her so hard. Like, I was just like, when I rewatched that part, I was like, I didn't even see that coming. I really didn't. I thought it was him because us as viewers, we watched him die. So I figured he really did cross over, and that's just him just like saying goodbye. Like, you know what I mean? Like, all the evil and all the bullshit of life is kind of drained out of him. Now he's probably a little bit more pure, saying like, "Hey, I love you," you know what I mean, before I get out of here and everything. It's Freddy. It's motherfucking Freddy. So what ends up happening is, after Nancy's stabbed, you know what I mean, the Neil is still in the real world. Remember, he didn't get buried, he just got knocked out. So he ends up throwing the holy water on Freddy, which ends up, banishing Freddy, and that pretty much wraps up the movie. So you end the movie with quite a few people still alive, which doesn't usually happen. Sorry, as a fly just attacked me. Which doesn't usually happen in the Freddy movies, but it starts to become more of a common denominator later on as these movies progress. So you got Kincaid, Joey, and Kristen all still alive for the next movie. These, 1, 3, 4, and 5 are like super, super, super closely knit related. I'm not sure about 6, and then 7 is obviously a play on, everything. So, 3 is really interesting because it does directly tie into 1, but it also leads to something else. Dream Master, and then the last one is the Dream Child. So all 3 of those have the Dream name. So you got Nightmare on Elm Street, Dream Warriors, then you got Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Dream Master, then Nightmare on Elm Street 5, Dream Child. Those are all directly related. Like I said, if I had to put this one in a number area, it would probably go, I don't know why I love Freddy's Revenge though. 2, which is like very weird because it's not really a Freddy movie, but I just enjoy the idea of it taking a different scenario. I've already had my review. You guys can check my review out. So it would go 2, then Dream Warriors, then the original, and then we'll figure out the rest afterwards. You know what I mean? I love how Neil was a man of science at first, and then after becoming a man of science, he totally went the faith route and believed in everything that he saw because his eyes told him to. And I think that's how a lot of us would be. A lot of us, it's hard for people to, experience and understand other people's religions and other things like that. But if somebody came down and something was to happen directly to you, that's what usually drives people to faith and things like that. So I think it's a very interesting take on that. And I think it's also interesting that they made Nancy go to school in college to basically become a psychiatrist to then come back and help kids in her school, in her town, you know what I mean? In Springwood or wherever the hell it's called. That, to me, is just like really, really well done writing. And what's even crazier is she knows that she can't just go back to town and be like, it's Freddy Krueger. Freddy Krueger is killing these kids in their dreams. She can't do that. If you do that, they're gonna take your license. You're not gonna have a license no more. You're not gonna have shit no more if you try that shit. So what do you have to do? You gotta permeate through the ranks, right? And find somebody that's a little bit, teeter-tottering, who cares about the kids enough, but maybe sees that the results and everything that they're trying and their tactics they're trying just isn't working, and fucking Nancy's like, well, let me slide these ideas into him. You know what I'm saying? That's why she wanted to drop the hypnosil stuff on him so early, you know what I mean? And Neil didn't want to do it at first. Neil actually tells her no a few times in the movie. And I love this like back and forth. It's not as like in 4 and 5, everything's just so black and white. It just happens because it happens. You know what I mean? You just have to accept it. Whereas in this movie, there's a lot to talk about and a lot to take little hints and notes and good writing from, because you can see the relationship with the patients isn't all the same. Not everybody, they're not all team patients. We're all best friends. You know what I mean? I'd argue Will and Joey are really close, you know what I mean? And Philip and Joey and Will are probably all close, you know what I mean? But Kincaid is in his own world, you know what I mean? Jennifer's in her own world. You know, some of these guys don't like each other. There is a little bit of tension with that. And I feel like that's how it would be if you're living in a psychiatric ward with a bunch of other people, where you're able to not competent, but you're able to understand, you know, to a certain degree, what you like and what you don't like. That's going to happen. You know, you're going to butt heads. So I love that about the movie. I love Freddy in this movie. He's super fun. He also like understands that he's getting stronger than ever before, you know what I mean? Because he has so many souls that he's been getting and grabbing. He's been grabbing all the suicides. Plus he's got all these kids in the ward thinking about him 24/7, you know, to where they won't even go to sleep. If I had to give this movie an out of 10, it would probably be like an 8.5, almost a 9 out of 10. The practical effects, man, sell these movies, man. Please go back to practical effects. I know it costs more, but CG just doesn't work, and you end up like, I don't know, you end up losing a lot. You know, when these movies do CG, you don't care, because you know how old the movie is, right? But like, it's like nowadays you'll see CG, and I guarantee you in 10, 15 years, that CG is gonna look bad. Just like it always has. Every time we've ever progressed in computer graphics, the last 10 years look like shit, you know? So I would prefer if they went back to that practical route, you know, just looking at the stop motion Freddy when they created him with when Philip's little doll made himself into Freddy. Amazing, man. Amazing. And then even in the next movie, we'll talk about some great special effects they got in there, because that one has some of my favorite special effects. But yeah, overall, man, I love this movie, and I loved rewatching it. It opened my eyes to a lot of cool things about Freddy, and I would recommend you guys rewatch this movie. Do it with some subtitles. If you can get some really good subtitles, that's how I would recommend watching it, because you get to hear a lot of the like news and a lot of the casting and stuff they'll talk about in the background, and that gives you a lot of insight as to what's going on in the town and how kind of Freddy's like, you know, teetering his way through everything, man. All right, man, this review has gone on way longer than I thought it was going to. It kind of carried on. Sorry, dragging you guys through the whole entire movie. I'm going to cut it up where I can, obviously. You guys new to the channel, make sure you guys like. Comment down below what's your favorite Freddy movie, your favorite horror movie in general, what you'd like to see me review next. Next up on the teeter-totter, though, is going to be Elm Street 4 and 5, because I just watched those bad boys. And then we're going to keep it going from there, guys. It's going to be basically horror month right now, so I'm going to do a bunch of scary movies and stuff, try to keep adding to that catalog. And we're going to keep it up, man. I'm going to keep trying to do at least 2-3 videos a week for you guys if I can. I appreciate you guys out there in YouTube land. If you haven't done so, follow me on Twitch. Your boy's usually there live every other day, pretty much every day that I'm not, you know, out doing real life business stuff, all right? So I love you guys so much. You guys be easy out there in the streets. Thank you guys so much for kicking in and watching through the whole video if you made it all the way through, and peace.